Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Ultimate Human Experience podcast. We are back with a brand new episode titled The Tumultuous Journey of Self Love. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share with family and friends and those who you feel will vibe with this message. With that being said, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. And on this episode, we are talking all about self love. It is your girl, Rashida, aka Righteous Sun, and our beautiful co host and founder of the Hero Collective, Rima.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm really excited for today's episode.
Yes. This episode is like not a spur of the moment, but I always say divine timing for everything. And here we are. So you have brought on, because I always say it's the more the merrier. We brought on a special guest who is a good friend of yours. And I feel it's only best that you introduce her and then
Yeah,
like let's get into it.
absolutely. So today we have Giselle. Hi, Giselle.
Hi. Hello.
Giselle is the founder and visionary behind Now More Than Ever. Now More Than Ever is a newspaper subscription that you can get. It's available at multiple different coffees and cafe shops across the GTA. Now More Than Ever is a newspaper that is written by Giselle, where she goes around and meets different women entrepreneurs to empower their magical gifts, their magical offerings that they are offering across the GTA. Giselle is like as you mentioned, Rashida, a good friend of mine, a business bestie, and a collaborator with the Hero Collective. Lots of magic to come. And I feel really honored to have her here today in this conversation around the tumultuous journey of self love, because we've had lots of cool conversations, but really about how her paper and the paper that she's creating and using to empower the stories and the gifts of so many of those that she shared in her paper so far is a journey of self-love. And really those stories that she shares is highlighting who they are and being part of their own, about being part of their story and sharing their gifts. So Giselle, on to you. Tell us a
Yeah.
little about yourselves and about Now More Than Ever.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and introducing me. I'm really happy to be here and to share my story. Basically, I did start this paper from, self-love and discovery and going through hardships and trying to figure out, where to place myself in this world. Um, it's as much as it is out of self-love, it is just a labor of love. And, that discovery takes a lot of work and it's a continuous, journey for me. And it's a lot of, a lot of energy and a lot of, hours that I'm putting into it that is really helping the growth of myself and finding me better situated in this world. Yeah.
Love that. I love how you touched on the fact that it's also like your vehicle to like help you find your voice, right?
Yes.
And I love that. And while you do that, you're helping others find their voice and have that opportunity to reflect on their own magical gifts. I think so.
Yeah.
Like we don't really take the chance to really pause and look at
Yeah.
ourselves and what we've accomplished, right? So you really provided a space for folks to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that that's really what my goal is to build a community where people feel heard and to feel, safe in sharing their word and finding their voice. It At the end of the day, this really is a community paper. Um, it's about women, but not just for women. It's to just really highlight and understand the feminine energy that we possess and that we provide to the world.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Ooh, feminine energy.
Mhm.
I want to invite Bell Hooks into the conversation. Bell Hooks is, the book All About Love by Bell Hooks. She talks a lot about the feminine energy and the female energy and how that shows up in relationships with love. And I know I've had conversations with both of you individually briefly about Bell Hooks and like how she talks about love. So I just want to throw that out to both of you. Actually, Rashida, you mentioned to me something about some of the impacts that like the conversation around love in bell hooks has had on you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you're saying that because like a question came up that
Ooh.
I don't think I've ever asked myself is what did I think self-love was before I actually knew what self-love was? Because
Mm.
I think growing up I didn't even know what love was.
Mm.
And then I got a little bit older and then I thought, oh, meeting new women, we started talking about what healthy love was because we've all been grown up seeing, because I'm a mom, so your kids see love or what they think is love. And
Mm.
that's going to come in many different forms for
Mm.
everybody. You might have a two-parent household, you might have a one-parent household, you might have your parents working all the time, you never see them, but you think that's love when they come home and they buy you things,
Yeah.
right? You think that's love, but you're still missing something. For me, I knew what love wasn't. I don't think I ever knew what love was, but I knew what it wasn't. I
Mm.
just witnessed so much abuse that I was like, well, this isn't love. I know
Mm.
that much. I would go to my friends' homes and I'd be like, okay, well, it's not happening here. So this is better than, but I still don't know what love was. So that's a question that I'd have to sit with for myself is like, what was it? What did I think it was before? Because I think love is something that's unique to everybody and how it touches your heart, like uniquely yours.
Mm.
I'm only saying that because, like, I've been in a relationship for a long time. And when you get into a relationship, you're both coming in from two different families, two different spectrums, two different worlds. And then you come in thinking what love is. And during that time, as you get older, you meet different people and you start to like fall in love, or you think you're falling in love, but it feels good. So you're like, okay, that's love. But then you get hurt. And so I think you backtrack and then you finally meet this person and you have a perspective of what love is and they have a perspective of what love is, but you've both been hurt in love. You've both grown up thinking what love was or it wasn't, and then you come here and you're like, okay, we're going to figure this out. That's where I've learned what love is and what self-love is, because I
Mm.
had to love myself even more to be able to love my partner.
That,
That.
that,
Yeah.
that's something that I'm learning about right now too. I think that, I moved in with my partner a year ago and we've been dating for 3. But I think that when you reach that 3rd year mark, it's kind of like, okay, now you're starting to discover, the differences. I feel like the first couple years you're like still in that honeymoon phase, like, I love you, you're awesome, like let's like have fun together. And then now you're kind of moving into the more serious parts of discovering the depth of which you can connect. And, those differences you really need to compromise or work together and try to figure out, how to make this continue. And yeah, I think that it's just like really important to that's when the real work is really being put in, you're trying to really discover your partner. And with self-discovery and self-love, I feel like that's really the one of the main most important things, because if you don't understand love or what your version of love is, they won't be able to understand it. You also won't be able to understand it, how to find it in them, and you won't be able to share those things.
I love that. And what's coming up for me is like, this concept of self-love. It
Mm.
feels it's very individualistic, right? Like we've been sold this idea of self-love being a very individualistic journey. But hearing you both speak and reflecting on my own experience, self-love is not a journey of an individualistic journey that, let's call it like it is a colonial perspective, a colonial mindset. The
Mm.
journey of self love is a collectivist experience. It's how we relate with other people, whether it be a partner, how we see love, how it isn't, right? As you mentioned, Rashida, right? Like in our families of origin, maybe like how we notice how love is in other spaces. And we're like, that's not love. I've decided that's not what love looks like for me, or that doesn't sit like what I want love to look like. So, love, self love, or the experience of what love is really not an individual journey. It really is about how we relate with others and how that relationship then helps teach us too. It's like it goes both ways, right? It's not linear either. It's not right. It's like this like iterative kind of like I'm making this really weird motion right now with my hands, but like how we're like we're figuring it out and we're sharing it, right? We're figuring it out and we're sharing it. And really quick story that I want to share as you both were sharing, I was in a really, really extremely harmful situation about a year ago in my workplace. I have a horrible, horrible employer who's treated me terribly and was quite abusive, verbally, emotionally, psychologically abusive in my workplace. It's been an incredibly tumultuous time. But what the experience in that relationship had me actually dig my heels and like, no, I'm incredible. I'm an incredible educator. I'm an incredible person. I know my ethos. I know my intentions. And you're treating me like disrespectfully. That experience, though terrible, actually cultivated a space for me to actually deepen how I saw myself and how I actually deeply fell in love with myself on a level that I'd never experienced before because I don't have any bad things towards this person. I genuinely wish her healing. I wish them well. I will share the Hero Collective with them for them to find practitioners to help them on their healing journey once it launches. But it also helped me like take a mirror to myself and be like, wow, even in a moment where you're being terribly treated, you have so much compassion, but also boundaries and like being able to protect yourself, but can simultaneously wish them well. Like I want you, I've said this before on the podcast, I want you to eat, just not at my table, right? Tupac, right? And so, yeah, I really want to honor that. And one last thing, I was flipping through the Bell Hooks book, all about love, and I just want to share this one thing that she's written. So Bell Hooks writes, the attitude is mirrored in grown-ups. They turn to explanation. As spokesperson for a delusional generation, Elizabeth Wurtzel asserts in Bitch, in a praise of difficult women, quote, none of us are getting better at loving. We are getting more scared of it. We were not given good skills to begin with, and the choices we make have tended only to reinforce our sense that love is hopeless and useless. Her words echo all that I can hear in older generations say about love. And so really it is about like unlearning and then relearning what's core to us, right? Anyways, that's all I
I
have to
feel
say.
like that's interesting because like I feel like that's the lessons that I'm learning every day with my partner is that it is a mirror. You are looking at yourself in a way when you're with your partner and you're not even just partner but relationships in general, and people will echo back things that you are projecting. So there's a lot of lessons that are being learned daily, on how you react, how you're talking, how you're communicating, what you're projecting. So it's definitely mirrors, and it's not a two-way street. I mean, it is a two-way street. It's multiple. There's multiple things happening. And you really have to learn the best that you can to be as self-aware as possible.
Self-aware.
Mm. Yeah, I
Mhm.
like that. Yeah, I've learned that self-awareness helps along with surrendering.
Mhm.
I like what you were saying in the book when it's talking about being scared. Like, I'm not gonna lie, scared of love, right?
Mhm.
Like, nobody cannot say that they're not scared of love. Well, when you really like love something, it makes you feel like you're naked in front of billions of people. That's how vulnerable to me love is. So you're afraid that somebody's going to break that, break that vulnerability that actually feels so good. I would say it's like a newborn baby that trusts that, like, they don't know anything. They're just kind of this world, just like we all want to feel that. And I think the moment that we start to, I'm going to speak from women, the moment that you start to feel that, we get scared and we go the other way. Or we will create something to create a blockage or a little protection shield when somebody is actually genuinely trying to love you, or it's too good to be true.
Mhm.
Even those things come in for so many. So it's like we try to, I've definitely done this. You try to create a love that it's probably not the right one. Because to me, love should be something that just, it starts to cultivate over time. Like it is a unique, but yes, you're right. It is a collective thing. I live in a household with a whole bunch of people. Like I realize that like in my kids, each one of them as an individual, as a soul, it's a reflection of me in this like time that I thought I've healed it, but there's so many layers that you keep having to peel back and you dive deeper into that with each relationship that you have, especially if it's those that you're going to know for a long time or the ones you've known for a long time and you share those moments with them. It's another layer for me every single time that says, okay, how much more am I going to love myself? Where is that coming from? And I'm saying this too because yesterday, and this has happened like in the span of like a couple, maybe like 2 weeks, of a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old, both girls. And it's still sometimes a struggle to teach them how to love themselves. I know it took me a long time. I wasn't until I was like an adult. And even then, I'm now hitting a point of even diving deeper. So when you're in a relationship, like, yeah, there's like a deeper level that you continue to go into to learn more about your love for yourself and just like for the whole. So for them, it was their hair. So like one has like more crunchier hair, like more my hair, like a little bit thicker. The other one has loose curls like yours, Rima, but they both don't like their hair. And they both want each other's hair. And it's more of like, I remember growing up not being like, I needed braces, all these things. I just knew that as a young kid, the self-awareness of like, what's here is so like surface level that what's in here is so fire. So like what you said, Rima, about like being at work and like dealing with all the situations, it helps you to dig deeper into how much you have to love yourself because the world sometimes is going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Like not, because they don't love themselves. That's what I say to my kids. Like my daughter had a total meltdown about her hair. I have to get it done. She doesn't love the curls. People are going to say stuff about her. She's like, why are people mean? And I'm like having to remind her constantly that like, it doesn't matter what these people say. Do you love it? Well, I do love my curls and I want it to be out. Then that's all that matters. That's the love that like I sit back and I'm like, how can I like spoon feed this to her so she digests it and then like can go out in the world? But then I have to sit back and know that like, wow, there's still things that like I have to uncover deeper within me that I'm like, I still have to like reparent those little pieces of myself that I now still see like pieces of that in them where they can at least express like I do love it. I'm just worried about what other people are going to say. I think when it's self-love, when you deepen that, it doesn't matter. Right? If you're in a relationship and so saying like, I don't know if I like your partner, I don't know, it doesn't matter because you know that's the love. That's that self-love piece. I think I'm going like totally all over the place, but like both of what you said really touched on that piece for me of like learning more about that love and being able to reflect it and share it with the people that you love as well. It deepens that self-love on a whole, it's like from self-love to love.
Mm.
I've got a question because you touched on it. You talked about like your children currently in a state of having to defend or come to terms with their own hair, right? That's one attribute of that, right? And I have my own story about that. But when we're children, things are brought to us, and hopefully I articulate this correctly. Things are brought to us that people don't like about us. And as we grow older, that thing ends up being the thing that we love about ourselves the most often. So for me, it is my hair, but it's also my current weight. I'd love to hear from both of you. Is there something that when you were a child that maybe was like questioned or people didn't like about you and like that was something that you worked through And now it's like your favorite thing about you, right? That you've deeply loved. And it's like, instead of seeing those things as a child as like I was bullied for whatever, if we can reframe that as like that was an opportunity for me to build a relationship with that part of me that I can deeply love.
Yeah, I feel like mine was very, it's actually true. What you just said is true. Like what I was bullied about is now kind of what I'm doing now, or what I love about myself the most. So when I was a kid, I was bullied for being like a goody two shoes. So I was always bullied to like not stand up for myself or not have a backbone or like a pushover, you would say. And I never saw myself as that. I always just saw myself as like a happy-go-lucky kid and I just wanted to play, you know? But in other people's eyes, because they're projecting, especially as children, they don't know what they're projecting. But I can only assume that people that were bullying were probably coming from, you know, a background where they needed to project. But I don't know that in my head as a kid. All I know is that they're teasing me and I don't know why. And I always thought that I didn't have a voice. I always told myself, like, oh, you're not good at writing. Even when I was growing up and going through school and just doing all my work, I would get my brother to help me write my essays for me because I just told myself, I don't have a voice. I'm not good at writing. I'm not good at reading. I'm not good at doing all of this stuff. And then now, this is my career. I became a writer. I've started my own like paper. Like it's crazy to me to think about how I'm now sitting in a place where I was so fearful of. Like I hated that part of myself. And now I'm just all about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's just like, oh, yeah, love that. And I love that for you. Like, because gosh, your gift of like empowering and show, like, what would we, you are such a gift, right? Like, you not finding that voice and finding that space to do that, your paper would be such a disservice to so many, right? Including the Hero Collective, right? And Rashida and myself, right? Like we would never have met, right, Giselle? And I would have lost an opportunity to have a friend with someone like as special as you. So like I'm so grateful that you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, the journey is wild, you know, but I think that it is also full circle. You will one day find that peace, and it'll be a continuous journey and continuous work because you'll always have new experiences and new things to learn and new people to meet. But at the end of the day, like things come full circle somewhere, and you'll
yeah,
see them popping up in your life all the time.
the
Um,
tumultuous journey of
yeah,
self-love.
but it's when you figure out those moments though, when you see the clearness of like what you've had to go through to get to where you are to be more confident with who you are, like it's the best feeling. You're just like, I conquered that side of myself, you know? And now I get to share that gift with the world and with people around me. You know, whether it's through work or it's through relationship or just with yourself, you just feel more confidence.
What do they
But
say? They say life makes sense only backwards, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Rashida, do you have a thing that you are like
Um,
wildly in love with now?
being different,
Mm.
that was really my thing. I was picked on for being different. Just how I am right now is exactly how I've always been. like honestly, that came up yesterday and maybe like the last few days, just dealing with like my girls and going through their, they express things that I would never express with my own mom. So they're open to sharing those things, which brings up just like memories for me as a kid of like, how did you manage, Rashida? Like if I showed you a picture, you would be like, yeah, it's beautiful. But I'll never forget showing a picture to a couple of friends because I was like, before braces, like they would call me Roger Rabbit. Like my teeth were all scrunched in. So I had one tooth that was just out. So I could never close my mouth. So they would call me everything under the sun. It didn't matter to me because I was like, I know me. This is just nothing, right? But I also had friends who knew me from like kindergarten growing up. So they really like defended me and protected me because they just knew like who Rashida was. But I can now look back like, Rashida, you never changed. The only thing, just like Giselle, what you said, it was just really quiet. Like because I was different, it was easier for me to say nothing. obviously that me saying nothing to other people meant that like I wasn't smart or whatever the case is, but like I had self-awareness. Like now that I can look back, like, oh, you were aware as a kid, but you chose to step back. Like so many kids, those quiet ones in class are just surveying the entire class and checking in on people's energies, right? The loud ones, they're just coming in differently with their energy. So the teachers go towards them a little bit more. But so, you know, I've always done workshops with some teachers out there, and I'm always like, pay attention to everybody because they're all coming in from different angles. And you never know. So I was that kid that was just that self-aware, but to everybody else, it was very different. And I was like, well, whatever, I'm just going to continue to do this. And it's led me to this. So just like you said, self-love, it's a discovery. It's like a self-discovery. And then it was probably a little backwards, I guess. But yeah, it was just me being different. But I've never changed that. And I want to like share that with so many people that like it doesn't matter what you wear. If it feels good, wear it. If you, and I've never changed that piece of me where I'm like, oh, if that's an elaborate thing, I'm gonna wear it, right? Because it makes me feel good. Or I'm gonna do this thing because it makes me feel good. Like, what does Rashida like? And honestly, too, I grew up like I wasn't really allowed to mix and mingle with friends. We had to stay home a lot. So I built a relationship with myself in my room.
Mm.
Like, as cheesy as it is, it was like my stuffies and like
Oh,
me and
similar.
music. And that was how I spent like a lot of my time until high school. So I had already built up this relationship of like the me, myself, and I. But as I got older, I was like, I don't want it to be me, myself, and I. I know that there's other people that are like me. I want to meet them. Wow, the
I
more
love
the
it.
merrier.
I love that. And here we are meeting.
Love that.
I love that. And it's so interesting that you and I have such a similar journey in like the me, myself, and I. I grew up with many women. I have a group of women cousins on my mom's side of the family, and we grew up together, and it was really harmful, if I'm being honest. Like, as of recently, or not just recently, but in the last few years, I've never felt like safe with them. And I think that when I go back to like my childhood, they pick on my hair. The oldest cousin in my family was just cruel and continues to be, if I'm being honest, just absolutely cruel, and would say things like, and would get everyone else on bullying me about my hair. I put bounce in my hair. And when we were teenagers, we were dancing and things. And I remember her, we went shopping to buy outfits for one of our performances. And I remember her calling me shortly after and saying, what size did you get in that skirt that we bought today? And I was like, oh, okay, let me check. And like not realizing. And I went and checked and then told her it was like whatever size it was. And she's like, oh. And then I could hear like people laughing in the background. And as she said,
Oh,
very, very cruel, right? Like just really cruel. And like I said, continues to be very cruel. And it's so interesting. So I was always this like, I love to sing and I love to like be silly and like myself. And I was always like, I'd always just show up so joyfully, but I always felt so crushed by her and a couple of my other cousins. But there was this one cousin I had, and she's not even related to me, but she was there often. Her name is Sonia. Shout out to Sonia. I love her. And she was the one, right? That like her and I were kind of like, I don't want to call us weird, but we were like different. I love that, Rashida. We were like the different together. We were so soulful and still are. She's just so soulful, beautiful human. And, I would sing and create poetry, and she would like come along with me, and we'd be like silly together. And, we would be, we were great dancers. We were part of our dance performances, but we were never like skinny enough, or we were made to feel like we were not pretty enough. And anyways, long story short, in my 20s and 30s, I got into modeling. And so I lost all this weight. And like, I've always been like average, but I was made to feel like I was like massive by my family, my cousins, but I was never. And never loved my body. And so I lost all kinds of weight. I was like modeling, I was like doing all this stuff. And I hated myself. Like I was on the cover of a magazine. I was like doing fashion shows. I was so unhappy, folks. I questioned every man who wanted to date me. Um, And I said to my neighbor the other day, who's like a soul sister, I said, the least interesting thing about me is my body. And it's all the things that have happened before, like in this interim, right? Me having this harmful experience with this, employer of mine last year, or not my employer, my manager, meeting people like you who like see me, value me, my gifts, cultivating relationships, distancing myself from people who don't see and value me, that I'm like, wait a second. The least interesting thing about me, maybe I said that wrong earlier. The least interesting thing about me is my body, my weight. And I think that like when I said that to her and I heard myself say it, I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. And although though all those harmful experiences with my cousins were terrible, I'm also, it's also provided that stake that needed to be put in, that for me to then like be like, nope, I'm taking that back. And that's what I love about me. I'm back to
Yeah.
singing. I'm back to that poetry. I'm back to all those things. And I love that, like, I've been able to have that, that family member, Sonia, that I'm able to have those conversations with her and being like, I'm back to loving me again. And thank you for like sharing that with me growing up. So anyways, that was a little long,
Love
convoluted,
it.
but yeah,
It's
the
perfect.
least interesting thing about this is like that buck tooth that's popping out or our body, right?
That's
But
the
yeah,
thing, right? Like you gotta embrace your differences. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes all of us unique. Those differences. I feel like even as a kid, like I was always drawn to the people that were different, or I always had a relationship with those types of people because I related to that. I would related to like, oh, like we're not all the same. So like, that's not about fitting in, it's about standing out. And you got to figure out what makes you stand out or what makes you you. Like embrace those differences inside of you, and like you will feel way more better living your life. you know.
Yeah, I
And I think
agree.
that that's what one of my goal is, to make
yeah,
people feel more confident in my paper, like I'm trying to focus more on who they are as opposed to like what they're doing, like what you're doing is important, but also why, like what is the reason you're doing what you're doing. And it makes that purpose, that little difference in how you approach life makes all the difference. Yeah.
my grandmother used to always say, my maternal grandmother, Bopatira Nandani, who the Hero Collective is obviously inspired, the logo's inspired by her. Whenever I used to be like, Nanny, like I need to lose weight or I need to do this, right? She'd always like pause. Like she had this like really graceful, like presence where she would look at me and she'd be like, Beta, it's in here. Beta means like my love or my child. It's in here. It's all in your heart.
Mm.
And she'd always say kushro, just kushro, which means like just stay happy. And she'd always say that, right? And I don't think I totally, I'm going to start to cry again in this episode. I don't think I totally understood what that meant until like, as I've gotten older, like truly just like, it's just in here. Like, just stay happy with you, with who you are. And of course, I have it tatted now on my wrist, Kushro. I got it on what would have been her 100th birthday.
Mm.
But and I love that I had that to remind me that, and I have that in my voice in my head still, and hopefully that energy transpires throughout all those who encounter and are part of the Hero Collective and who choose to be you know members.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
tears here, Rashida.
You're
Words are
honestly
not coming.
yeah, thank you for sharing. Just thank you for sharing that. Because I love elders. I love
Mm.
elders. I've always loved elders because they are so wise. Like
Mm.
you've been here for a long time. You've seen things that I haven't seen. You've experienced things that I haven't experienced. When you come with those like juicy words, I'm like, right? You want to write notes, you want to tape because you want to make sure that you can hold those things. And it's exactly that. Like, I'm glad that you even said it because yesterday I was thinking in my head as like my daughter's bawling her eyes out. And I'm just trying to comfort her as much as I can, but also just saying, Rashida, just give her space. She needs to just let it out. Like, okay, it's all the stuff that I didn't let out. I just was, I just kept it all together. So I always feel like it's coming out through them. Just let it be. But it made me think when you said that yesterday, I was thinking to myself, wow, like honestly, Rashida, love is in here. That self-love, like, how do you know? I literally said that yesterday, like, it's in here. But then I laughed about it because I was like, if you would have told me this, like, in my 20s or like early, it's in here, I would have been like, get out my face. Like, where is it? I want to see it. That's where I probably would have been. But like now, I get it. It's in here. It is. Once you find it in here, it's this. Like, so if people are thinking, well, I don't get that. Where is it? I need to find it. The question came up because I was like, okay, that's easy for me to say that it's in here. How do you connect to in here? Okay, do the things that you love. Okay, well, what are the things that I love? What does your soul love to do? What is your soul calling to you to do? What are those things that makes you feel like time stops?
Mm.
Okay. So for me, yeah, okay, I love to dance. Okay, do that. I love to paint. Do that. I love to do that. Do whatever it is. The more you start to do those things that, for whatever reason, you're preventing yourself from doing, you're making excuses as to why you can't do it, why you stopped, why you want to pick it up, but whatever, do it.
For
Do it
sure.
to see what happens. You don't have to have an end goal. If I do this, then I will have self love. No, just do it and see how you feel. The more you do it, the more you can observe and see how you feel. Just see. It's an experiment. Just try it out.
I like what you said about the questions though, because that question, that's what starts it all off. You know, that's what starts off that self-discovery process. That question that you ask yourself, those questions are so important to not ignore because that is your journey. That is you trying to discover. That is you trying to make way for yourself. And if you ignore those questions, then you're never going to get to a point of reaching a level of deeper understanding. But it starts with those questions.
And I think another question that I had like naturally been asking myself recently, but really needed to be very cognizant about earlier was like, how can I bring compassion to myself right now?
Mm.
Right. Because I think we have this idea that self love is like just loving, right? But there's also like a lot of self forgiveness and self compassion. And so, like, you can have a conversation with someone where you didn't stand up for yourself or you didn't set that boundary or someone's crossed a boundary and you now don't know how to like backtrack or speak something or say something, right? And it's like, well, how can I show up with compassion for myself and for the other person? Because we can't perfectly take care of ourselves in the way that we're always going to do everything perfectly for ourselves and honoring all the ways, right? We're going to make mistakes too, but how we show ourselves compassion then also translate to how we show others compassion, right? Like the more forgiving I can be with myself. And that's so important because I can forgive myself for putting myself in situations or like allowing situations to go a lot further than needed to be, like my cousin maybe, like not connecting with her as much as I did in my 20s because I wish I didn't, right? Like I didn't need to do that after all the harm in her, but bringing that compassion and self-love, like no, I have compassion for myself. Like I did that because I wanted to build a relationship, but even though I didn't know how to honor that harm that I was experiencing and feeling invisible in those situations. And I think that's so important.
Mhm.
Like going back to like the bell hooks, right? Like, and she says like how like love is intangible, and so how do we really like define that or create that? And I think we've been trying to share, all three of us, about what self-love looks like to us, but really at the end of the day, it's intangible. It's not something, it's not a destination. It's just like the whole thing is a journey, right?
For sure. Um, I was gonna say something off of what you just said. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Gosh, no
But
worries.
basically what I was gonna say was that like you're your biggest critic, right? You're going to judge yourself the most because you're in your own mind, you're in your own thoughts, you're overthinking a lot of situations. You're the only one that you're talking to. So at the end of the day, the only person that you need to please is yourself. you know, and I think that that is a very important like lesson that I had to learn for myself, is just that nothing else matters except if you are happy with what you're doing. And because, yeah, you're right. You need to show your compassion for yourself, because you will hurt yourself the most. You will be hard on yourself. You will talk yourself out of things. You will, you know, say that you can't do something. You will be fearful. But you have to remember that you're doing that to yourself. It's only you that you need to please.
Yep. I love that.
Mhm.
Love this conversation.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Loved having, loved. Yeah.
If you are looking for some support on your journey, and if you're looking for some love, some community, you know, we've talked a lot about self-love being, you know, a relationship with others and how we connect and how we relate with other people. The Hero Collective is here for you. We officially launch middle of June. We'll be having lots of community in-person events as well as virtual events. Some of those events will be in collaboration with Now More Than Ever, our beautiful Giselle, who's here today, including silent hangs, you know, intention setting dinners, as well as some workshops that we'll be offering with you. The Hero Collective has some incredible and exceptional practitioners who are all vetted and who honor the ancestral lineage of what they share and offer. So please feel free to check us out once we launch. We are able to search by modality, ailment, or symptom to find a practitioner that may be able to support you along your own self-love journey.
Thank you so much. Giselle, can you put a plug in as to where people can find your paper?
Yes. My next issue, which is actually about leading with love. My next issue is coming out in June. You can follow us on Now More Than Ever, either nmte.ca or now.more.than.ever on Instagram. Yeah, you can find us. Just type in Now More Than Ever. I'm sure it will pop up.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rima. Thank you, Giselle. This was a
Thank you for having
beautiful conversation. This is the Ultimate Human Experience Podcast. We are out. Peace.